Welcome everybody to Drum Education Live, episode 84. Please subscribe so you don't miss any updates. And today we have the wonderful Sarah Thawer with us. Woo! Thank you for coming on. I'm just going to jump in with a question we ask everybody, and it's about education. You were self-taught when you were little, and then you went to music school, university, and now I'm aware that you're a drumeo coach. So I wondered what your view is of drum education and if you think anything is missing today.
I feel like we're in such a great place right now where there's so much information out there, maybe too much information. And the thing is, for me, when I grew up in a time of CDs, cassettes, and DVDs. So whatever my parents brought into the home was what I basically had access to. And I felt like, for me personally, it helped me to kind of self-explore what I loved. And then when I figured out what I loved, then I sought out knowledge based on what I love and what resonates with me. Whereas I feel like maybe now with, social media and too much information, it's like, how to play the fastest. Ooh, that sounds good. It's like candy, like sugar. Ooh, that's nice. Or how can I play paradiddles like this? But then maybe sometimes that love or that yearning for what you want to play on the drums and then seek out education. I feel like maybe that is missing, maybe. But I think drum education is extremely important. It really helped take what's in my head out to my limbs. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. So you think that we should allow people to first explore music and then later go into the formal education of the instrument? Is kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, like just a simple question like why? Like why do you want to play drums? What genre of music do you like? What do you know? What do you not know? What fascinates you? Just having these questions, because I feel like I always have these questions at the back of my mind since I started playing drums. Yeah.
Cool.
I have a question about odd time odd time, but we call it in the West, because I know a little bit, tiny bit about conical, which I believe is Southern Indian way of counting. And you were talking about Rupak Tal, which is the 7 beats. And I think it's such a lovely way to express ideas on the drums. And I just kind of was thinking, do you ever count, or is it always for you a rhythm that you know, that you learned when you were a little girl?
So I find, like, let's say I have a set piece that I just kind of have to play, I'll maybe do the counting. But if it's a song that I get to improvise and really go for, I can't really count. It really goes off of, like in the Rupak Dal video, the bhari and the kali, the empty and then the heavy. So like for Rupak, it's dan taka taka boom boom taka 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 boom taka boom. So when you think of it like that, the possibilities are limitless. I played with this incredible keyboard player, Jesus Molina, and he's pretty well known and very well known online. And his music, it's so hard. Like the solo section is in like 11, or then there's a bar of 5 that's inserted, and it's so quick that you can't count it. You have to just da, 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 and then you just have to memorize kind of the feeling of the accents. So I try to avoid counting.
I think avoiding counting makes you freer to pay more attention to the melody, probably, because otherwise you're going to be 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11. Says the guy who doesn't play odd meters at all.
And how can that groove? How can it groove really if just going, what is it?
When starting out playing odd times, I do like to use my mind and be like, okay, here's 7. How can I break up 7 in different ways? How can I make a system out of it? Maybe get an ostinato with the right hand, do 16-note subdivisions with my snare drum, and then explore and count in my head. Then you can, when you feel comfortable, then you can, kind of stop counting. But that process of recording myself, hearing myself back, making sure my time is okay. There have been many moments where I've gone for a lot of things, like on stage. The time is weird and I wasn't counting or I got lost. And then I would listen back and I'm like, oh no, I added a beat or I missed a beat. So that happens and that's okay. But yeah, definitely start with like using your brain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then the destination should be, freedom and feeling it.
So, for you now, playing other meters became more natural than it used to be before because you've been doing it so much that you, to the point that you actually don't even care what the time signature is. You just listen to the song and you go for it.
I would say so. I think I'm in a really good place with it. I remember one time I was playing a show and the meter was odd. Then it just felt like 4, and then I'm like, oh my! I started panicking. I'm like, wait, what time signature am I in? And then I'm like, oh yeah, it's 7. Oh wait, what's? And then I kind of had a panic moment because it felt too natural. But yeah.
I long for that time in my life. I wanted to talk about that feeling of preparation. I heard you on another podcast where you're saying about, oh, I don't like to be too prepared because I know I'm like in my head or whatever. Do you think we're afraid as drummers to make mistakes?
I think so because I was one of them. I remember I played at a drum festival in Quebec, and I never rehearsed with the band. There was no time, and there was a solo section. I couldn't really hear the band, and they were playing a vamp, and I was soloing on top of it, and I messed up, and it was like such an embarrassing moment. Like I cried, and it felt really bad, and it actually at that time got uploaded to YouTube, and I'm like, oh my god, and then I went down this rabbit hole seeing, okay, does Vinny Colaiuta miss a beat? And I tried to look at everybody's solos, and I spent like a week trying to find, and I couldn't find anything. And I'm like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I suck. So then I just decided that I'll be that person to like just kind of be as transparent, because when I looked out for people who make mistakes, I couldn't find anything online. So I think in this day and age with editing and all that kind of stuff, it's maybe we become more conscious and it's hard to be as transparent, but I allow for it and I like to go for things, and I really believe that energy and heart speaks through even if you make a mistake. So yeah, I like to be prepared, like, okay, here's the form A, B, C, this many bars, that type of thing. But to really kind of map everything out, it's not my thing. I really like to really embody being in the moment. For instance, I did this Drumeo video a couple of years back about Indian rhythms on the drum set. And I remember there was a snowstorm outside and the flights were all canceled and I only slept for like 1 hour or something. And I'm like, oh man, how is this going to work? And on top of that, my sister bought me like a new pair of glasses, and I wear contacts now when I'm playing because glasses be flying everywhere. But at the time, my sister bought me new glasses, and I'm like, okay, it's too loose, but it looks good. Okay, I'll just wear it for the lesson. I go in for the lesson. It's a live lesson, and I'm getting distracted with my glasses. Then it's time for me to end with a big solo. I couldn't focus. I threw the glasses. And then it became a thing. Like the video went viral, and it was such an in the moment thing. So that kind of validated for me. Just be in the moment, and it's beautiful.
Indeed, music is created in the moment.
100%.
But don't you think that's the hardest thing, though? Sometimes, I mean, just to get rid of all of that and just be like, I'm here, and I'm just going to put all of these thoughts somewhere else, and I'm just going to connect with people I'm playing with and just be in the moment. I don't know, I certainly struggle with that sometimes, just being truly there. But I love what you're saying about the heart shining through. I hope that's true. I just think, I want to be in that place.
And I agree. Like it's hard, like when life comes in the way, when there's anger, frustration with our loved ones or whatever, when you go on stage, it's like I can't think. I can't be in the moment. So I try to use tricks in my mind. There have been times where, I've been so much in my head to the point I forgot what I even played after playing it. So I would say, okay, let's say it's time to solo. I'll think, okay, it's like a 4/4. Let's take 16 notes, and I'll play 16 notes. All right, let's play paradiddle, and I'll walk myself in my mind through it. And I'll say, I'll start playing paradiddles. I'll accent the first, and then to get into being in the moment, I'll sing it, go, and I'll go, but, and you start like tricking your mind. And then you kind of mechanically build the solo, but you're singing it to yourself. So you're still improvising and being in the moment as much as you can be. And you're like kind of playing mind games with yourself to kind of be in the moment.
Whatever works for you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I love that you're so driven, and I know when you applied to lots of music schools you got rejected. And have you got any advice for any young drummers who are in a similar place and they aren't getting the gigs at the moment, or they're not, they're not getting noticed the way they want to? Have you got any words of wisdom for them?
So what I would say is, one thing I've learned is that the trajectory and your potential, in my opinion, is way more important than where you are in the moment. Again, when I was like 18, people who were 18, like they were my age at the time, they were doing all the gigs and things that I wanted to do. But I said, I know my trajectory, and I'm like, I'll see you guys in a few years. And it happened. So yeah, work on your trajectory, work on your ability to self-engineer, to learn, because that will take you down that path to reach where you want to be. So don't be discouraged.
Love it.
True indeed. Let's get a little bit controversial. There was a video of yours that became viral because you decided to address the elephant in the room and about being a girl drummer.
Yeah.
Since the video, has it changed, or we're still living in the era of the girl drummers instead of just everybody being drummers?
Yes. So this is the thing. First, when I did that video, in my mind, I wasn't referencing like only girls who play drums. For me, it was women in every single industry. Like my mom is an engineer, an electrical engineer. And if you look at her graduation pictures, she's the only girl there, or even at her workplace. And now things are changing. But again, so growing up, I did not see people who kind of looked like me and who played the drums, unless it was like someone like Sheila E, who's like a dear friend of mine and an incredible supporter of me and my journey. I feel like we're at a place now that women are definitely killing it and getting recognized and doing their thing. But there are things under the table that I find that women face. And it's not even just women, it's anybody with something that's not normal or something that is not understood. Just being a woman is just my experience, and that does not diminish anybody's experience. And I always say this, I love girl bands. I love all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, I believe that to promote gender equality in every area is all genders playing together or working together. There should be no women are better than men or men, none of that. Is that we're all just human playing the drums. So I do feel that things have changed. I do feel like there's a greater awareness. And I want to keep pushing that forward.
And you should.
Yeah.
You are. I think you just are by doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
So.
Yeah, I think sometimes the best way to push something forward is just keep doing it, and then eventually doesn't matter if you're a girl, boy, or an alligator. If you can play well the drums, you should get into the band.
Yeah, 100%. And like there are even so many experiences that my friends or stories that I've heard that I can't even talk about because it's very personal, or it would expose somebody, and these things are real. You know what I mean? So as much as I can, I just want to promote equality and that type of thing. Yeah.
Sure.
You mentioned Sheila E. I saw that you've played with her a few times. Is that right? I've seen on your Insta you're in Vegas.
Yeah.
How did that come to be? How did you guys connect?
So during COVID, so she started liking all my videos on Instagram like a couple of years ago, and I'm like, no way, like that's not her. And then we were talking on DM, talking a little bit here and there. I'm like, oh my God. And then we stayed in touch. And then she did this project during COVID called Little Drummer Girls. That's what it was called. And it was myself and two other incredible drummers and Sheila, and we did a online collaboration. And we were in touch. And then I met up with her when I moved to LA about twice. And then she hit me up and she's like, "Hey, my drummer can't make these gigs that I have." And she was on tour. And she said, "Sara, listen, like in her entire career, only 3 drummers have subbed in for her. That's it." And I said, "Holy smokes." And we had no rehearsal or anything like that. And we went to Caesar's Palace and we did the gig. And I was like, oh man, it was so much fun. It was like one of the best experiences ever.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a lot of these situations where
There's no
there's
rehearsal.
like no rehearsal. And you're like, yeah.
I think Kira is the one who have situations that there are too many rehearsals. Because I was just telling her of the experience I had last Saturday that I played with the band after 10 years and no rehearsals.
Wow. Like I know so many people who are like, who love to rehearse, and I commend them because I feel like I'm sometimes impatient a little bit here and there. So it's like you just have to know your strengths. If you feel like you thrive off of rehearsals, like I know some musicians when they do drum clinics and festivals, they map out like everything, which crash they're gonna hit, or their setup doesn't change. And I'm like, oh yeah, like that's how you sound so good. Good for you. For me, it's like I need my cymbal stand to be a little crooked, or I need to leave a little bit of open. And that's how my best self comes out. So I always try to vouch for everybody that if you find what works for you, run with it.
Yeah, true.
So you thrive off that anticipation, the energy of like, we're just going to do this. I'm going to sink or swim. Obviously, I'm going to swim. Love it.
That's fun for me. Yeah.
Lockdown. I loved your videos. I bloody love it with your, you're singing and you're kind of rapping, and I just thought they were joyful and wonderful, and so creative. And I really think that's so refreshing. Sometimes I think social media, little rant, can just be a bit either like show offy or I don't know. And I always find what you do really refreshing and creative, and you just do what you want. I love it. Did lockdown make you change anything or reassess anything in your life?
100%. I feel like lockdown for me was definitely a blessing. So right before lockdown kicked in, I was in rehearsals in LA to go on tour with an artist named Watsky, and I've played with him before, and yeah, it was going to be another run. And I was so excited to go on tour, but then at the same time, I had this itch where I'm like, it's time for me to kind of focus on me now. And and then lockdown hit. Second rehearsal, flew back home, no tour, obviously. And then every day I woke up and I'm like, what is missing in my life? Exercising, healthy eating. So I started kind of understanding that type of stuff. And then I started meditating every single day. I tried to do a lot of self-care and try to get a lot of awareness of what I want and what's missing in my life. Tried on new clothes, new outfits, new hairdo, new makeup. And then I took my sample pad and I'm like, oh, like what songs am I listening to? Like I love, like 50 Cent, I cut up stuff, Mario cut up stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting bored of practicing in my basement. There's no gigs going on. How can I still promote myself and keep social media moving forward? So I said, okay, turn on the camera, turn on Logic. And I start playing grooves and inserting samples at different spots. And I'm like, oh, this sounds pretty cool. And at the same time, it was very challenging. I'm like, what if you add a sample on the E while keeping a groove? Or solo and make sure the sample stays on E. So it was mentally stimulating, and it was good for the visuals for Instagram too. And I started doing a lot of that type of stuff. And then I remember I had my like a mic on my hi-hat, and I decided to put it like on my mouth, and I started going and I'm like, oh cool, like let me record it. And I recorded it, and then I'm like, this is fun. And on my spare time, I love to make rap videos, like about my eyebrows or big nose or drums being the best. And I said, you know what? Now is the time. So I just put it out there, and it was crazy. Like, I think, it was 50-50. at first it was like, it was kind of calm. It's cool. And then everybody wants to rule the world. There was a huge drum challenge, metric modulation challenge that came out. And I was feeling very like creative, like at my peak of creativity, to the point where I'm like, I don't even care. I just want to go for stuff. So I'm like, let me grab the mic. And I was like talking while playing, but I purposely didn't, I wasn't singing. And I put this out. And I think this is a timeless song that moves throughout generations, for the older generation and the younger generation. So, different social media platforms have different age categories of people that look at it. Facebook is more maybe for the, kind of older, young. Instagram is young. TikTok is like tiny people. Um,
And
so,
very quick, only 16 seconds. It's amazing.
exactly. So I put this video out, and on Facebook, it got almost 1 million views, and the reviews were 50-50. Some people are like, she's losing her mind. Some people are like, it sucks. Like, is she tone deaf? Like, she's ruining music. And one of my mentors at the time, she was, I don't want to disclose any more information, but she reached out to me and she was like, you're ruining your career, Sarah, by doing this type of stuff. And I'm like, okay. I log into Instagram. In an hour, I lost 500 followers. So my world, I was getting very confused. I couldn't sleep for a couple nights. I had migraines over migraines, thinking that, what am I doing? Am I really ruining my career? I call my sister. My sister's like, Sarah, are you proud of this video? I'm like, yeah. She's like, does this video make you happy? I'm like, yeah. She's like, leave it. And then I just followed my heart and I kept doing it until it became a thing. And yeah, I just kind of explored being you and not caring about what people think. And I think that's such an easy statement to say, but to really embody it is a whole different experience. So I definitely feel that I used that COVID period to let out everything and to embrace the hatred and the judgment and just keep moving forward.
Wow. It's
Excellent.
like pulling off a plaster or something, isn't it? It's like you have to have super thick skin, and you just were like, well, this is it. This is how I'm going to get there.
And even when pros are telling you that you're ruining your career, and when pros are telling, like people who you've looked up to are kind of like bashing what you're doing, it's hard to take in. So I just learned to, just keep moving forward.
Well, sometimes people don't get. They're so used to the usual path that if you just take a step to the right or to the left, they think you're bonkers, and they're saying, oh, she's gonna ruin her career, and then all of a sudden that may be exactly what you needed to refresh your playing, refresh your ideas, refresh everything.
100%. I couldn't agree more. And what I've always believed is, like, going back to drum education, is educating myself in every genre of music, opening myself to every possibility, and not being too judgmental, absorbing information. So when I do something that's like crazy and abnormal, I know in my head that, okay, I was playing on beat. So I can like objectively say, I did play this, I played that. Okay, objectively it's fine. So it's just a taste of an opinion and I'm pushing the boundary. So I try to make sure I'm aware of kind of what's happening around me, rather than being, oh, I don't agree with this and I don't agree with that. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's about, in terms of other people going, oh, she's ruining her career, whatever. I feel like in that moment, you're being vulnerable because you're doing what you want. And it's vulnerability. And I think that scares people.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Two things that scares people: vulnerability and somebody trying something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because let's imagine I'm this drummer who has a 50-year career that's doing really well, and then all of a sudden this person tries something completely different, and that's the new trend. Do I have to do that? Do I have to go crazy as well? Yeah,
Right.
it might be very difficult.
Yeah, I don't believe in trends. Like, I mean, unless a trend gravitates towards you, hell yeah, go for it. But if you're doing a trend for the sake of the trend, I'm not for that at all.
I
Yeah.
agree with you, but I think especially in the social media era, people are more more worried about the trends than the music or or whatever they've been doing. That's the feeling I have.
Yeah,
You know.
I agree. Yeah.
How do you deal with being, having a high bar of what you expect from yourself, and how do you know when's enough, when to switch that off or to just not listen to that anymore?
Oh man, I have a very obsessive personality. You know, if I'll play on a track and I can hear my snare like either slightly ahead or behind, like I can hear it and it'll drive me nuts to the point where like literally I've listened to it 100 times over the course of a few days. It's gotten that bad. But then the more that I did recordings and sessions, I'm like, wait, we're all human. We're not machines. We're not robots. So I've come to this, I have to talk myself through, and I think it's important sometimes when you get too caught up and you get anxious, is I tell myself, okay, this is the best that I can do today in this moment. My heart's in it. It's not perfect because I'm not perfect, but I love it. And I just that sets me free. And like especially saying this is the best that I can do in this moment.
I love that. In fact, I heard someone was on another podcast. Yes, I listen to a lot of podcasts, but he was saying Bear Grylls. Do you know who he is?
No.
Yeah, I
He's
do.
like this survivor dude.
Yeah.
He's like big in the UK.
Yeah, he's big in the UK. Yeah.
He like climbs mountains and whatever, and no big deal.
Yeah,
And he's just
climbs mountains, kills alligators and dinosaurs and all this.
Oh,
but he was talking about that, the difference that he says to himself, I don't have to be the best. I just have to do my best in the moment. And it was just like, oh my God, yes. Tiny thing, but massive.
massive. I'm a big Priyanka Chopra fan. Have you guys heard of Priyanka
Yeah.
Chopra?
Hmm.
She's like she's an incredible Bollywood actress, and now she's made her way into the West, like doing a bunch of movies. She's married to Nick Jonas from the Jonas Brothers.
Oh, I know who you mean.
Yes, and I watched a lot of her interviews, and she says that she's not trained in acting or in anything, and she's one of the biggest stars in India alive. And she said the secret for her is confidence. She says if you can convince people that what you're doing is right, as long as you believe in yourself that what you're doing is right. So when you see a final product that is so good, that's because they have kind of convinced you that because they're owning it. Like when you own what you're doing, it becomes right. Then there's no perfection. If you listen to today, everything is quantized, and is that really perfect or a goal? You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's like just be confident in your choices, even if it's a mistake. Make it louder and make it prouder, because this moment and this recording does not define you. You still have ways ahead of you. So just embody the moment and be confident in it. Yeah.
Or as a teacher I had used to say, if you make a mistake, repeat it and it becomes arrangement.
I love it. I need to start doing that.
I would really like to know what you're practicing at the moment.
Okay, practicing. Okay, so when I was in university, and that age phase of my life, I was crazy regimented, and I had everything written down. Okay, feet 1 hour, practice pad 1 hour, whatever. And I did that for 4 or 5 years, and then I started having papers on the wall. How I practiced 1 hour today, this day. How many days am I missing? To the point where I practiced like I was on tour for 2 months, U.S. and Europe at the time, and it's hard to practice when you're on tour. But what I did is obsessively, I found every guitar center that's near the venue, and before the gig, I would practice 1 hour at the Guitar Center, and I negotiated $10 an hour with at every guitar center that I went to. So I managed on tour to practice every single day. So that's how crazy it became. I mean, it helped with technique, but my mind was gone. Like no creation, no creativity, a lot of anxiety. So I think that period in my life it was too much. And then when COVID hit, I'm like, this is not working for me. I need to practice this many hours. I need to do this for this amount of time. And again, everybody works differently, but it doesn't work for me. I threw everything out in the garbage. And I said, I had like 3 papers, and I'm like, limb independence coordination, some exercises I want to do, single kick around the drums with hands this, groove this, keep it vague. And then every day I practice. And I feel the practice is way more fulfilling. And I record myself now. Every practice session, I record myself. Like, I'll practice for, let's say I do 45 minutes and I'm working on something. I'll record after 45 minutes for 5 minutes and I'll listen back. And for me, that took my playing like to the next level so much faster. So in a nutshell, back then it was way more rigid. And that served technically and a purpose in one way, but now it's more, I just play the songs, I record myself, I leave it more open. Like, I haven't practiced, I think, in 4 days, which for me back then was like, I would like probably have like a panic attack, but now I know my brain needs it. And I think 2 months ago, I didn't practice for 11 days. I was so anxious to get back on the drums. I got back on the drums and I'm like, oh, this feels really good. And that just proved to, like, it's your mind. You need to rest your mind as well as your body. And if you rest your mind, your limbs will operate faster. So yeah, I kind of, now I'm learning how I get better, faster, better, and what works for me. Yeah.
Do you think that too much practice can create a certain level of anxiety that gets in the way of your playing because you've been practicing so much, you know so much, and then you think, if I don't play this much, people think she is not this good?
For me, yes. Like 100% yes. Like, what was it? So like this gig that I had with Jesus Molina, I posted the video online where it was no rehearsal and we played at Musicians Institute in Hollywood and the music was like really hard. And living in LA, I'm still getting used to not having a drum set in my basement. Now I have to like drive maybe 20 minutes away. So it's a bit of it's taken time to get used to. So things were really busy at the time. I did not get a chance to sit on the drums and practice that music. The night before the show, it was like 2 a.m. and I was going through the charts. I didn't practice drums for 5 days. So I'm like, look, this is a recipe for disaster. So, went to the gig and I felt so good. I felt so good that my ideas were flowing and I could think. So I do feel if I'm like practicing too much, I get very clouded up here. So I recommend like taking breaks. And there's that quote, they say that if you practice, if you miss 1 day of practice, I notice. Or if you miss 2 days of practice, the audience, that quote, I don't know. I don't believe in that 100%. Yeah.
I have the feeling that as long as the audience is having a good time, they don't notice because they're not there to see who's practicing or who's not.
Yeah, 100%. And also, if they're having fun because we're having fun.
Yeah.
So like that's the secret. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and what you were saying earlier about being in the moment, if you could just get yourself there, then there's no limit to what you can do. Whereas I know I've been in a situation where I've practiced something so intently and then I'm there and I'm like crippled because I'm so in my mind. And it's
Yeah.
like, I think that made it worse actually.
Yes, 100%. And even in the practice room, if I have a practice hat and then a performing hat, it doesn't work because then you have to be like, okay, how am I going to translate it to the stage? When I'm practicing, I have my performance hat on. There should, in my opinion, the level of focus in the practice room should be the same as when you're on the stage. So it translates quicker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Have you got any new music coming out? I'd love to know a little bit more about that, what you've got planned.
So, I'm working with different producers. And I'm trying a lot of new things. So I've been writing music since 2018 and I had different phases. I was writing like jazz fusion stuff, crazy odd time stuff. And now there's a mix between instrumental, some vocals, and the rapping stuff, and some produced stuff. So it's well on its way and just keep on the lookout for it. Yeah.
We will.
Cool.
We will. Adam Bond is asking, how are you finding LA and what steps are you taking to find work or to do what you want to do?
Hi, Adam. Thank you for the lovely question. So, LA's been awesome. First of all, the weather is killing. You know, in Toronto, we missed the whole winter, no snow, so A plus for that. Uh, LA has been great because wherever you go, you see people who you've admired for so many years. And the things that just happen randomly, it's unbelievable. So LA has been incredible in that way. In terms of finding work, kind of just going out and about, you know, going to different jam sessions, meeting people. You know, if I may say, like this year I got offered in the summer like maybe 4 to 5 tours, and I humbly turned them down because I'm trying to do things that I want to do. And I say this to say that there's so much that you can do. You just have to be there and just walk around, I would say, and go out. So it's been great that way.
Awesome. This is from, we have had a marriage proposal. Someone's
Wow.
asking you to marry them, but this is from Abby. What is the best way to be more creative on the drums, aka making original grooves and fills?
Yeah. So, if I have to do it in a systematic way, let's say, you know, kick 1 3. Oh, first of all, hey Abby, thank you for the lovely question. So systematically, if I do kick 1 and 3, snare 2 and 4, 8 notes on the hi-hat. So I'll go boom, kat, boom, kat. So I'll say, okay, what can I do with the snare to make it more creative? Doom, ba, 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 doom, ba, ba, ba. Okay, let me add an open hi-hat. So it's like you're adding and subtracting. So doing that in a very systematical way. And I always encourage singing as well. So even when I'm playing a solo, you know, like if I have to form a solo based off of an ostinato, and the kick is going doom 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 doom, I'll go quarter notes first, doom 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 doom. Now go E, and then dynamics, and then orchestration. So these are like the 2 ways that I do it in a very systematical way, and I would recommend singing it and making it feel like a melody.
Singing is
Amazing.
actually very, very important because it makes your brain understand it musically. And I remember a big band teacher I had that he said, if you sing the phrase, you're going to get it right all the time because you know the melody.
Yes, 100%.
Last one is from David. How to break the shy? Why? I think he meant to say, how can I be more natural when I play?
Hey David, thank you for the lovely question. So how to break the shine, how to be natural when I play. Like, I would say, like, first and foremost is like just love who you are. I know it sounds so like therapy like, which I love, but I would say like, really love who you are. And what I mean by that is like I spent a lot of time recording myself, especially during COVID, during that experimental phase. Like record yourself, hear yourself. What is your sound like? And just explore and don't judge too much. Allow mistakes to happen, allow for criticism to come in. Don't let anybody define you. Um and again, criticism and stuff is a good thing when you hear feedback, but take it in a very objective way. Keep your spirit up and actually welcome the hate. I think like for me to act, now that I think about it, for me to play natural on the drums is I don't push away hate or criticism. I welcome it and I let it be there. Then it just allows me to go even more crazy. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah! I love it. Thank you. You're amazing. And yeah, thank you for being the positive force and creative drummer that you are. It's wonderful.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this, and it was such a pleasure to talk to both of you today.
Thank you very much. It was
Thank you.
great. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you again, and see you at a show.
Yeah.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.